So let me say this right from the jump, the highs of Stormblood are really high, the world building is incredible and the locations are really fun and memorable. Not these two, but I promise this isn't a video of me just complaining about an 8-year-old expansion, but I'm gonna have to, I promise it will get better. So my main issue is Stormblood's entire premise is built around a character that we know literally nothing about. In fact, it's worse than that, it's built around 2 characters we know nothing about. And what we know about one of them is that she's pretending to be the other character, so we know nothing about either of them. And it's honestly the strangest decision I've seen in a Final Fantasy game. And I'm not usually one to say, well, who the hell are these characters, why should I care? Because I always like to let the story try and tell me why I need to care. But here is why it's different, and granted not everyone is going to have this experience because depending on which city you started in depends on who you meet first. But I met Yida and Papalimo first, so I'm grid gang all day every day. And sure, I liked these 2 in The Realm Reborn, but we never get anything from them and they're quote killed off, and then we find them again and then one is killed off for real this time and the other one says no, she's actually her sister. It's very shaky ground to try and build a house on, but I'll give full credit to them, they did manage to do a good job with the Alamigo side of the story despite everything I just said. Because like Lise, we know nothing about Alamigo, we don't know what the culture was like, we don't know anything, all we know is that the Garleans annexed the region of Eorzea and it's been under their rule for years now and Alamigans have had enough. So even trying to get people to care about that as an uphill struggle, I don't envy in the slightest. But they do stick the landing and they manage that because they do something very clever here. They take the Warrior of Light away from Alamigo and into an entirely new country, an entirely new continent even, and they basically start the story again. And I think the writers here knew that this was the play that they had to do because Lise and Alamigo just wasn't going to cut it for an entire expansion, but their story could prop up someone else's and they could salvage something out of it. And it's in Doma where we, as I said, we literally start this expansion all over again. But this time we get the Heavensward effect, albeit with one key difference, and I think that difference is one of the biggest sticking points of people, but I'll circle back around to that. So what do I mean by the Heavensward effect? Well, everything is new, and when I say everything, I mean everything. The zones are new, the music is new, the characters, all new. And it's important because nothing looks like anything else in Eorzea, and that's the key difference. Alamigo just looks like Ul'dah and it feels like you're just repeating that same story again. Where with Doma you don't get that feeling, or at least I didn't, and it's in Doma where one of Final Fantasy's biggest strengths shines. Because the Doman culture is absolutely one of my favourites so far, from everything Kugane to the steppes, everything is so varied and the people are all just so interesting. I could honestly sit here all day and just talk about it. But the biggest strength of Doma is the characters. Because in this lineup we get Yugiri, at last we finally get something more with her, and the auras as a whole, I genuinely loved every second of the focus on this side of things. Sure, for maybe plainly obvious reasons, but I just didn't expect any of it, and honestly I want and need more. But Hien, got Setsu, Yotsuyu, Xenos. Granted, Xenos is introducing the Alamigo side, and let me just say, that introduction that Rauga's reached though is fantastic. Like having that be the first canonical time that we as a character lose, 10 out of 10. Like the fact that no one talks about it until Raban brings it up as a point of like, hey guys, like did you not just see how badly they lost to this guy who we just met for the first time? And it gives such a subtle character beat for the Scions that are there, and I find it fascinating that this was the direction that the writers went with it. Because it gives the Scions either a real undenying belief in us or a quiet questioning of our abilities. I just thought it was brilliant, and it also skyrockets Xenos to the top of the character list. And as a whole, I honestly don't think there was a character here that I didn't like, and it's such a stark contrast to everything back in Alamigo where there's no bad characters per se in that side of it, they're just not explored enough for me. But everything else just gave me that Heavensward feeling of they're finally finding how they want to tell the story of this game. You could feel it in post-ARR with the patches. You saw it in full force with Heavensward, and they carried that on for 90% of the 3-point-something patches. It's literally only when they get to the Stormblood build-up can you see that they're questioning themselves again, but they do the same thing. They apply all those learnt lessons and save this expansion in the end. But now this is the circle back moment, so for anyone who's made it this far, I have a question for you that I'm really interested in the answer. And it's, how do people feel about the Warrior of Light reverting back to being just a pawn in someone else's story? because it drops the trend of us making a name for ourselves in Heaven's Ward and sends us right back to being the hired muscle to liberate Alamigo and Doma. Because personally, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I don't think I feel particularly great with it, and I'm certain it's the reason why Stormblood isn't higher up in my rankings of expansions / the patch contents. I'd love to hear what everyone thinks, so please feel free to leave that in the comments. Now I'm going to wrap this up with 2 points I'd like to highlight because, like Stormblood, I didn't mention it until the end. Shenryu should have absolutely played a bigger part in this story than it did, because it exists solely to kickstart things off and then end not just the story of Nidhogg's Eyes, but base Stormblood and nothing else, and I was pretty bummed out about that. But we're gonna end this on a positive note because there are far more positives than negatives with Stormblood, and I understand people's frustrations, I have my own, but the good in this outweighs the bad by a lot. And I just want to talk about the jump in the gameplay here. It's incredible. There is such an increase in quality of the encounter design that's spread across the MSQ, the trials, the dungeons and the raids. It makes a very strong case for being the best they've done so far. But I'm going to talk more about those in the next video. So let me just say thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it because I enjoy making it. And if you want to see more, hit the like, drop a comment down below and subscribe to make sure you don't miss the next one. Make sure to check out what else we got on the channel. Pro and Noob has been going over Down to Down in time for season 2. Jared's got some words for that show, so go check it out. And with that, I've been Mitch692, and as always, you've been great, and this has been the Sprout Talk for Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood, so peace!